Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Brave Cat here once again with another Frontier Signals update. So first off, there's a few things we're going to run through here. A couple of groundbreaking news, as well as, well, seems like the internet itself basically got melted by a controversial little vote. If you already know what I'm talking about, then you already do, but let's just kind of go into it. So first off, there was a, well, potentially groundbreaking discovery over by the Giza pyramids. Now, it doesn't come with, of course, some speculation behind it. And even someone like Jimmy Corsetti is quite skeptical of this claim that they have found a second Sphinx, Filippo Biondi, and their team. So they're not just basing it off of this image here, which you can't really tell exactly what's going on. And if you, remove all the lines, you really can't tell that anything is there. There's just a mound over here by the pyramids, and it's like symmetrically opposing the other Sphinx that's by the pyramids. But the reason why it's speculative and why it's skeptical is really because, well, okay, we have a clickbait title. He has proprietary information that he's not releasing until the conference, which is a paid event. So, it's easy to see that he could just be trying to get ticket sales. And even if this is wrong, this is the current ecosystem where people forget and move on in just a couple days. So there's not really much he's risking, even if he is wrong. So that's why there's some backlash over this, even though, I would love for it to be true, and if it is, it'd be great if this was another movement in the right direction for archaeology, although, honestly, I doubt we're going to see anything be excavated or dug up, because that's not a thing that happens generally in archaeology, despite what you might think. There's so many things that we know is there, like Göbekli Tepe, for instance, and it's just not being excavated for all sorts of, conveniently placed reasons. So, that's what's going on there, which is interesting, but, also a little bit volatile, of course. We're on X, so everything's volatile. And speaking of that, there's a pretty crazy little vote here. Not really crazy, it's actually kind of underwhelming, kind of stupid. And especially the fact that people are putting so much energy towards this is kind of insane. Basically, all right, imagine everyone in the world has to take a private vote with the red and a blue button. If more than 50% of people press the blue button, everyone survives. But if less than 50% of people press the blue button, only people who press the red button survive. So, press the red button, you're okay either way. Press the blue button, now you're at risk. And so if 50% of people or more don't press it, you die. Well, the problem really comes in when in the context of framing, and there's infinite context of framing here, as it so turns out. Just taking this, for example, here, there's just 3 of the millions of different cases here, and ways you can label people. Save everyone, or save yourself, die or live, or pacifist versus killer. And so there's a million different ways that people are trying to spin this up, and it's causing absolute destruction, especially on this platform. It's actually kind of insane. So really quickly, if we just run through some of these other kind of insane things here. Everyone has a totally different view about it. If everyone presses the right button, nobody has to die. The blue button is the only button with a death sentence behind it, so there's some logic there. But then the other logic is, well, if everyone has to press the button, then that means like toddlers, children, cognitively impaired people, people are respinning it into different frames, such as potions, a giant crusher. Dude, get out of the crusher. Y'all just want to kill us. I mean, it's actually insane how many different views and takes. It's being politicized. It's being. Ugh, I'm just gonna stop there. So with that, let's just get into the regular geophysical update. That whole button thing kind of made me just want to turn off the internet pretty early today. It's pretty hard to even watch that stuff go down, and the horrendous things that people say to each other over a stupid hypothetical. It's basically on the same lines of, you know, a woman saying, if I was a worm, would you still love me? Like that. That's basically has the same weight as that stupid button question, and yet people are losing their minds. Okay, I said I was going to move on. There's been a lot of different extreme weather events happening in the last few days. It seems mostly centered around India and Indonesia. So not only was there a massive heat wave going across India, but then now they're getting flooded out with hailstorms and rain. A little bit weird. There's just a little landslide here with a truck getting slammed, and just a lot more massive hailstorms going on in certain places, windstorms, etc. This is just one account that generally has some pretty good stuff, at least coverage wise. Another factory going up in flames. I'm not really sure what the context is here or what could have been the cause. But let's just kind of move on to the rest of it here. So in terms of the sun and solar weather, space weather, sorry, it's been extremely quiet. Not really much going on there. There is a little bit bright active region down here, which did not show up on the farside sunspot imagery, which has also changed drastically in just a couple days. So, again, really, it's not something to bet all your eggs on, as we see a lot of different things change here. But, we have a coronal hole. It's very far on the north side, but it is pretty sizable. So, it doesn't seem like we're going to get too much of a impact from that, but it could still have some sort of impact. Running through the earthquakes and whatnot for today. So we're just going to take a look at the whole last 7 days, which the Canada feed is the last 30 days. So just keep that in mind. Just to take a look, we have, their usual deep earthquakes over here around by Fiji. Some small earthquakes peppered around Australia with, sizable amount of movement happening over here in the South Atlantic, going into the South Indian Ocean. So a decent amount of activity there. Kind of usual activity going on in South America. And then, of course, we have the West Coast. So we're actually just going to bring that down a little bit. There was a new 4 that struck over here in Nevada. This time it was down south, just north of Las Vegas. And, all the same usual tremor spots here going on. And I already checked the tremor map, and again, it's still been very low tremors over there on the slow slip events. So things are just kind of riding out based on what we've had in the last couple weeks or so. Hasn't been any tremendous developments going on there. But we take a look at Europe here really quickly. Again, let's kind of scroll back to the last 7 days, or in this case, I believe it's the last 150 earthquakes. Let me just double check. Last 100. So this might be less than the last week here. Of course, something goes wrong. But we have, same ongoing spot here, kind of erupting with mid-size activity here going up into the 5 range. It's actually a 5.8 in there. And again, that previous deep earthquake from Italy. So not really anything too new going on there. And in terms of the volcanoes, a lot of the same activity, but there is a few on here that have had some more unrest that hasn't really been on this list previously. So mostly this one out of Costa Rica, and I'm not sure where the other one went. I think it was just these 2 out of Costa Rica. I kind of saw that, hasn't really been on this list in a minute. I'm sorry, my brain and my body has been fried this past few days. So that's what we got going on pretty much. Pretty crazy stuff going on. Would not recommend doom scrolling or being chronically online. That is not a good thing. So with that, I will wrap things up there. So hope you all enjoyed, got some out of it. Please like and subscribe for more. Share this video if you dare, and as always, I'll catch you all in the next.